Hi, everybody. Welcome to the program. Today, Fred Robledo joins me for an exclusive interview with CIF Southern Section Commissioner Rob Wigod and Assistant Commissioner Thom Simmons.
If you give me a date, Fred, I'll give you a calendar and we'll be ready to go. The hard part is we don't know what the date is. And it's going to be very complicated, which I think people are going to need to understand a little bit more.
The most important thing, and you'll get tired of us saying this constantly, is people's health, their safety. And so if Ventura County is opening, which they've done, they've started to relax some of their restrictions. Riverside County, Orange County, some of these counties are relaxing some of their restrictions. That doesn't necessarily, it's not a one-size-fits-all model for us because we cover so many different counties. I think the last number we cover somewhere around 13, 14 counties.
Our conversation with Rob Wigod and Thom Simmons coming up. Hi, everybody. I'm James Escarcega. I'm not quite sure if you can see me, but if you can, I'm on my screen. I've got Freddie Robledo. I've got with us today Rob Wigod from the CIF Southern Section. And rather than give a long-winded introduction, I will say, Rob, it is great to see you. I trust family and everybody in the household is doing well.
Well, thank you, James. Thanks for inviting me. Fred, good to see you.
Nice to see you.
We're doing just fine. Got the whole family in our house. Both of our daughters are home with us, and our youngest is graduating from the University of Mississippi in about 3 weeks, and so it's been tough. It's been tough for her. I have my own senior. I know we've got a lot of high school seniors that are definitely having a difficult time, and I've got a college senior having a tough time as well. But no, we're doing great. I appreciate you asking about the family, and hope all is safe and well with you and your families.
Wow, that's two virtual ceremonies for you then, right? Two seniors, one in high school, one in college.
Yeah. The college one, yes. The older one is actually working remotely from home. She works for Shell Oil Company, so we just have the one.
Okay. Let me start this off, and we also have Thom Simmons, Assistant Commissioner, is also here on with us. So we have the two head honchos over at CIF. One of the things I wanted to touch on really first, Rob, before we get into some of the possibilities in the fall, is where are we at? What is going to happen with the football playoff format? Should there be a football season? The whole big discussion over the spring was, are we going to go to this new format where we decide the playoff divisions at the end of the year? Where does that stand?
Well, it's an item for the council meeting upcoming on May 21st. It's an action item, so it's up for vote. And the beautiful thing, I think, of the way our system works is that our schools are going to decide whether they want this or not. We've put a lot of work into it. We've responded to what our schools asked us to do, which is to find ways to use current regular season results to formulate divisions. So I think we've come up with a great plan. I think there's enough data and the ability to use that data appropriately. So I'm really looking forward to hearing what the section wants to do. Just to give you a little preview, I've got an update going out to our section tomorrow, and I'm going to elaborate a little bit more on it, but I'm also going to urge them to support it because I believe it would be a great opportunity for us to move competitive equity playoffs forward and actually do what we've been talking about since we started, which was to get more current regular seasons results involved.
And I have another follow-up for you and Thom, if both of you can answer. I mean, this is so unprecedented. We had the spring championships, particularly, baseball, first time since World War II that we didn't have CIF championships. And what has this been like for you guys, like right now in the summer as we prepare for a fall that nobody knows what's going to happen? We don't know what state and local officials are going to do. I've talked to some school districts who are have contingency plans for possible online-only scenarios. How difficult is planning for a fall season that may or may not come, may be delayed? And what are you guys doing in terms of contingency plans and keeping up with those officials?
It's easy and it's hard. It's easy because our staff and I, from the moment we had to cancel spring sports championships, began working on different scenarios, different calendars, different ways where we would be able to conduct section championships. That's, I don't say easy, but it's something we can put our arms around. If you give me a date, Fred, I'll give you a calendar and we'll be ready to go. The hard part is we don't know what the date is. And
Yeah.
it's going to be very complicated, which I think people are going to need to understand a little bit more. Every school district, private school is going to have a start date for their school year to begin. It's the way it's always been, but it's not the same day. So the big questions that our superintendents are going to have, the heads of our private schools, the folks in charge, are going to be, are we going to keep the same start date we've been planning on? Are we going to decide that, let's say our start date is August 15th, so we won't do anything until we can reopen the campus, get the students back, and then maybe begin to explore, okay, August 15th has come, we'll put the volleyball team back in the gym, we'll put the water polo team back in the pool, we'll put the football team back on the field and begin preparations. Or, as you know, our fall sports always get started with practice prior to school starting for most of our schools. So are the schools going to say that same example of the
Right.
August 15 start date? Are they going to say, well, we're going to reopen our campus August 1, and on August 1, we're going to let the volleyball team back and the water polo team back and the football team back? But here's our challenge. In a section of 563 member high schools and all these different dates that schools will be utilizing, some of them, like you said, they might even start with distance learning to begin with. Well, we're going to have to find at some point a general consensus of where our section is. And then, as I mentioned, we've got a calendar ready. You can give me a date and I'll give you a calendar where we can make it happen.
Yeah.
The biggest question is going to be, when and how are we going to decide we have enough schools back that can adequately prepare for a season for our fall sports to take over and have championships?
Yeah, Tom, and you're the assistant commissioner. Just, I'm trying, I want to be optimistic as both of you guys and everyone who wants to see high school sports come back. But you see these logistical nightmare possibilities. This school district can open, this one might not open. It might be different in Orange County than it is in LA County, than it is in Ventura County. I mean, are you trying to wrap your mind around that, how this might unfold, how difficult this might be to do?
Well, I think, what we've always done is we've started on a baseline is we're going to take advice from medical professionals and our state health and local health folks. And it's going to be an all-encompassing thing. It's not going to be just Rob one day is going to sign a decree and we're going to open up schools and sports and we're going to start playing football. The most important thing, and you'll get tired of us saying this constantly, is people's health, their safety. And so if Ventura County is opening, which they've done, they've started to relax some of their restrictions. Riverside County, Orange County, some of these counties are relaxing some of their restrictions. That doesn't necessarily, it's not a one-size-fits-all model for us because we cover so many different counties. I think the last number we cover somewhere around 13, 14 counties. So we'll figure it out based on what the health and science says. But yeah, it is hard to wrap your head around, but Rob's hit it on the head. We've got plans. The plans are in place and the contingency will work. It's just a question of whether or not, what that start date is.
And James, before you ask, well, let me just follow up with this, Rob, because I think, this is to that point too. James and I are on social media a lot, and I'm sure you guys have read a lot of the questions that are being asked or some of the scenario possibilities that people think are possible. Football is the big cash cow for a lot of these schools. Are there contingency plans or thoughts that maybe football could be played as a winter sport, a spring sport? You could take some sports in the spring and move them to the fall if it sounds more practical, like let's say a tennis or a golf. Are those even possibilities? You listen to the CDC yesterday, I think their president saying that there could be a second wave in the fall and winter that could possibly be even worse than we're going through right now because you would have the regular flu season to go with the COVID season. Are you looking at scenarios like that?
Well, everything's on the table. And I think that on April 22nd, everything is on the table. I sort of have some contingency plans, that we've been working on. And I've been taking the approach that I think, if you ask me again on April 22nd, based on the information and still not knowing when or if this will be able to open up for the fall, I would see us trying to wrap fall sports up before winter break. You got to remember, if fall sports were taking place, even on a later calendar, when did the winter sports start? They're supposed to start up about 10 days before Thanksgiving. So if we were going to start winter sports up in November, while fall sports are, finishing up and concluding, then, I see us maybe again with fall delayed somewhat, but winter got started on time. Well, if we can't do that with the fall, then when would the winter start? Would we have to push the winter back to January? Maybe they come back after winter break and start. But then our spring sports, you know, they would be about a month to 6 weeks away from starting from January. And I do think we have to be cognizant of what that would mean to our schools. Let's just say we had football in January and girls volleyball in January and boys water polo. Well, now we have girls water polo and boys water polo. We have basketball for boys and girls, soccer for boys and girls, wrestling, and still football and still girls volleyball. You know, there's a certain point where I don't know that that could even be workable at one of our school sites. You just can't have that many sports going on that same time in those same facilities and being able to really negotiate through that. So as I said, on April 22nd, the vision would be to try to get fall sports completed prior to winter break. And if that means delaying the start, having to shorten the season, I think all those are on the table. I have kind of, you know, I'm not making fun of it, but I have what I kind of call the Alamo scenario, where, you know, we just get to the very end where we're surrounded and we can't defend it anymore. And working back from there. I mean, there is an Alamo scenario. There's a scenario where we can get it all done before winter break, and we would start the season in various locations in terms of the time frame and still get it done. And so you can, when you have that as one basis, then you have your normal calendar as the other. You know, that's your framework. And then I believe we have the flexibility in any point between those to make it all work. And the biggest thing I just can't tell you, and no one can tell, is what the date to start is going to be. And it's going to be a big decision based on what Thomas already referred to as the local, state authorities about when it is safe to reopen, and individual school districts, individual private schools, individual schools who say, this is going to work for us and our community and our student athletes. And there is just a wide variance of what those dates are going to be. And so again, we'll have to come to some consensus at some point.
Yeah, I mean, Tom, you guys don't have to decide when schools open up and when schools are allowed to play. Those things will be decided for you, right? And then from that point on, you'll decide on how you're going to try to make this work.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that, because this is exactly what Rob and I were talking about the other day. You know, everybody thinks that it's going to be Rob's decision, that the commissioner will determine, or the executive committee. It's actually going to be the state and local authorities that make those decisions on whether or not it's safe to open up those schools. After that, then it's, as Rob has said, it's going to be the local school districts, or in case of private schools, their presidents or their principals, whatever the case may be, making those individual decisions. It's not going to be Rob Wigod just on one day going, I'm waving my magic wand and now we're starting all fall sports. That's just not the way it happens around here, and it shouldn't, because, you know, we need to trust our health folks. They know more than we do. We can show them how to run a football championship, but they're going to save our lives.
Yeah, James, do you want to ask?
Now let me pick up from here, Rob. I heard you in a prior interview talk about what you would say would be unadvisable, which is having an empty stands for football games. And I thought your take on it was real interesting. So go ahead and explain, please.
I've been asked about that, and I know that's something that colleges and professional leagues have talked about. I don't personally see it working on the high school level. And the reason I say that is the professional games, the college games, they're all accessible. People can watch them in some format. In the high school, we don't have that same capability. We do, but it's a lot more complicated. So I don't know that I envision seeing our high school sports resuming with no one in the stands, specifically no parents, no fellow students in the student body. Let's see, take football. We have no cheerleaders. We have no band. We have no parents and supporters of the school in general. Now, again, on April 22nd, you know, I can say that. Would our schools and everyone trade not having sports at all to being allowed to have them even without fans? Well, then that may be the path that we go. But on a personal note, I just don't know that that's going to be as feasible at the high school level as it might be in some other levels. And I just think we have to have confidence restored. if our students are going to get out there and play volleyball and get on the bus and go to and from the game, well, they're not going to be practicing social distancing. It's going to be impossible to do that. Our football teams will not be practicing social distancing. And so we're going to have to look at that and try to find a way, maybe with at least limited folks in the stands, which again, each individual school will have to take control of and monitor who gets in and take temperatures and have them sit in a social distancing format or something. I mean, again, all things are on the table, but I think just in a general way for high school athletics to return with no fans, I think it's more difficult for high school than some of the others.
One thing I also want to ask here, Rob, is I don't think it may have been missed, but I know the state commissioner has said recently that he wants to make sure that the sectional championships are played, that the state championships are not really a big priority. I believe you've said in the past that works in your favor.
It does. It buys us a few extra weeks if we come to that point and have to delay the start of a season and trying to fit all our section championships into that window and give schools all their league play. That will be essential for us to be able to conduct section championships, is that leagues have been able to conduct their league play. And so I give a lot of credit to CIF Executive Director Ron Nichetti, who has basically stated that he understands the value and the importance of section championships. And if, in fact, sections are able to fit their championships into the fall season, let's say, and be allowed a couple of extra weeks that would be normally used for state and regional championships, they would step aside, so to speak, and make sure that the sections could complete their competition.
I want to make sure we get this clear here, Fred, before I ask make sure you get the next question. Everything is on the table, right, Rob? So right now at this moment, everything, you're considering everything.
Absolutely, and as it should be. I don't think we are eliminating any possibilities, and I don't think we're able to forward any real possibilities at the moment. So what's the best tack? I will tell you, we are as committed as we could ever be to restoring what everybody loves, what everybody misses, what everybody wants to do. And I think the best way for us to keep that commitment and have that commitment be there each and every day is to continue to discuss possible things to do. How do we make this happen? You know, I use this expression. I was a history major. I got my degree. I taught history. And I've used this expression in our office before when certain things have happened. And I looked at our staff and I said, you know, this can be our finest hour, to steal from Winston Churchill. And I feel about that in this situation. This is about as devastating and difficult situation as this organization's faced in its 107 years. But there's a way for this to be our finest hour. And it's going to be up to us to make that happen when and if we're given the opportunity with the health experts and the school decision makers who decide when to reopen for their schools. Then we get to take over. And again, I want to come through. I want to deliver. I want to show that this is our finest hour, and people can have the faith and confidence in the southern section that we're going to come through for them, and we're going to be there, and we're going to make it happen, and start with our student athletes most importantly, and then their coaches and athletic directors and principals and fans and officials and media members and all the stakeholders out there that are just like I am, missing it terribly and wishing we could get it back.
Fred?
I have a couple questions. These were direct message to me, and one was just one. I wanted to ask a couple fans. I gave them the chance to ask a couple questions. This first one I'll direct at you, Tom, because I always come to you when it comes to rules and things like this. And this is something James brought up about 3 weeks ago. You know, we're in a situation where a lot of, people have been furloughed. A lot of people have lost their jobs. There's going to be situations, I think, where athletes who are in private schools may not be able to afford those private schools and may have to go to their nearby public school. Maybe they can't drive 30 miles to that private school again. How will that impact eligibility? Will there be, free transfers for situations like that where jobs are impacted because of the coronavirus?
That's a tough one for me to take. I think Rob might be able to handle that one better. I would simply say to you that any hardship bylaws, any transfer bylaws or state bylaws, outcome of how this situation is handled in terms of transfers is going to be from the state down, and it's not going to be from the sections up. So there's going to be one coherent bylaw that, or possible addendum to whatever the hardship bylaws are that would allow that, if that is to take place. As you know, right now, when there is no financial hardship, that was gone when we did the SOP dates.
Mm-hmm.
So there would have to be something at the state level that's determined that you would go in that direction. I think Rob can expand on that.
Yeah, if you don't mind, Fred, I'll just follow up quickly.
Okay.
We don't know the depth of all of this yet. I mean, we have what we have, but we still don't know the depth of it. And I think one of the things before any rules are changed or any different scenarios are adjusted, Thomas is absolutely right. I mean, our current rule doesn't provide for a financial hardship. But we don't know how deep this goes. And I think for any changes to be made, if they're going to be, or dispensations or different ways of approaching a real situation here where a family has lost their job and has lost income and can't afford maybe bigger things than even the schooling of their children in a private school. So I think it's, as James has helped me with it, it's on the table. We have communications among the 10 section commissioners and the CIF state office. We've had several conference calls. We have another one next week. And so we're continuing to monitor that situation. So I think it's a very real concern. It's a real question. It's a real life scenario. And the CIF, I believe, has a responsibility to look at the situation when we have the entire situation and determine what we think is in the best interest of all involved. So it's definitely something that's out there, and I think we're going to continue to be examining the situation. But again, we still don't know how deep this goes, and until we can get a sense of how much and how many have been affected and how many students fall into this situation, then obviously we have a better understanding of what we're dealing with.
I have an interesting question here from someone on Twitter that I hadn't even thought of, Rob, and then I'd like your take on this. And if you've heard from anyone, they said, is CIF taking into consideration how our officials feel about being involved in a season this fall, since many are of experienced age and could be highly affected by the virus around children?
Well, that's going to be an individual decision. Obviously, if some of the officials are in that category of higher risk or more vulnerability, then they may have to make those decisions. I don't know that we're going to be in a position, or a school's going to be in a position to say, well, we're just going to deny this official their opportunity to be out there because they're of advanced age or whatever the situation would be. But, you know, there's going to be guidelines again where, if you've noticed those phases that we've been seeing that the federal government's talked about, the highly vulnerable categories are the ones that really are supposed to be shelter in place for a much longer period of time. One thing we think may happen with officiating, as you all know, we're experiencing and have been experiencing a shortage of officials, but when the economy takes hits, we have seen officials numbers go up. And we expect, when we are able to resume, that we will probably get a larger pool of officials, because that's kind of been the way it's been over the years. So if we happen to lose some officials due to the fact that it may not be just right for them to get back out there, I guess the hope would be that we'd be able to replace them with some folks who definitely are looking to pick up some extra money and get involved in officiating when the economy takes a hit.
And let me ask you both, this is really a simple question, and it's a complex question. And that is, are you guys optimistic that we're going to have sports in the fall? I mean, are you really? I see these scenarios where, let's say we start at football, one kid comes down with coronavirus. Now all of a sudden you got a team that's got to shelter in place for 2 weeks. Maybe the team that they played has to shelter in place for 2 weeks. Maybe the team that they played a week before has to shelter in place. There's these nightmare scenarios that are possible once we get started, and all it takes is one kid in one of these sports. And you're hearing a vaccine might be a year away. You're hearing the therapies that they're working on right now. They're hoping they have one that'll help with the mortality rate, that maybe will encourage people, if there's something out there that can help them, that they'll feel a little bit more easy about going out. But are you guys both, when you look into your crystal ball, are you optimistic, or do you really think this is going to be a a long shot.
I was going to say Tom should answer the complex part, and I'll do the easy part.
Okay.
I'm not sure which
you want
is
to kick
which.
it up. No, listen. I don't think there's a lot of things that we have a choice about. We don't have a choice about when the health authorities are going to open it up. We don't even have that choice of when schools are going to decide to open up. But we do have a choice to approach this one of two ways. We can either approach it optimistically, realizing what we have, how important it is to the young people we're fortunate enough to serve, how much it means to our schools and our communities, how much it means to everybody. In some ways, I think some of it's been taken for granted over the years. It's always been there. Oh, he's always had high school sports. Okay, it's going to be this championship next year, next season. It's gone. People miss it. We're all hurting without it. So I think there's only one choice, and that's to be as optimistic as we can. And realistic. I don't mean when you're optimistic that you're, completely ignoring what the realities are, but with being April 22nd and fall sports supposed to be starting up in August, where we were on March 22nd, April 22nd are different, and where we're going to be on June 22nd, it's going to be different.
Yeah.
I think, we have to play this out. But I'll say this real quick. The summer worries me. And I know we got a lot of our schools, got to get back out there. Let's, the campuses are closed, but, we got to get summer program going. I'll be honest with you. The 3, 4, 5 weeks of summer program, if we just say, hey, look, and for our winter and spring sports, with all due respect, you can get by without a summer program. You're going to have plenty of time to get the winter and spring started. Fall, I get it. But, if we can trade 3, 4, 5 weeks of the summer to make sure we're on a better control, we've got a better situation going forward than putting the 3, 4, 5 weeks of summer activities out there when everybody's on campus. And then we heighten the likelihood of starting up and then doing exactly what you said, Fred, having to pull it all back again and shut it all down in the fall. I got to believe our schools would choose taking 3 or 4 extra weeks in the summer to really be in a better position than rushing them back out there in the summer, only another month later,
I agree with you.
spiked up again. We got to shut it all down in the fall. I honestly believe that. And I hope our schools will really take a long and hard look at that. Because I've had a lot of folks, can we waive the dead period? Can we do this? Can we do that? We got to get back here in the summer. I'm like, well, a month ago, that was a different conversation than it is today. And our school campuses aren't even going to be open in the summer. So you're suggesting that they reopen them for summer athletics, getting the kids who are back on campus in virtually every program. They'll be back in the weight room. They'll be back in the gym. They'll be back in the pool. They'll be back in, all over the campus. And then games, tournaments. And now we find that we're just not in a position that was going to help keep this thing under control. And we get to August and we go, doggone it, these weeks of the summer just spiked us right back up and everything shut down again. I'd really, really be disappointed if that's the way this thing plays out.
And Tom, let's do this, Tom. Let me do this, Tom. Let me play.
Really quickly, I just wanted to amplify something that Rob said, and that when I was a sophomore in high school, my very first day of football practice was the very first day of school. So the idea that we can't play football unless we have 3 weeks in August to prepare for that time period is to me, I think, is some kind of new thinking, because, like, again, yeah, we didn't play that first Friday when I came back to school on Monday. We played, a couple weeks later on, but the first day of practice was the first day of school. So this is not uncharted territory. And the thing that I'm optimistic about is not just the fact that I think that we'll be back and we'll be playing athletics in the CIF Southern Section, the CIF in the state, but what I'm optimistic and I'm excited about is the reemergence, the realization from a lot of folks who probably haven't taken in a high school game in quite some time, finally realizing that, this is a pretty neat opportunities for these kids. And these fans, I think, they're gonna come back to high school football in a way that they never have, and not just high school football, high school athletics across the board. A lot of folks who maybe sat it out and would rather see a Dodger game or rather see an Angel. I think the excitement about high school athletics is gonna hit a fever pitch.
You were reading my mind, Tom, because that was the direction I was going that I wanted to ask you. And Rob had mentioned maybe this could be our finest hour. In talking to athletes, especially the baseball ones and the football ones, all these kids are stuck at home right now for a month for the first time in their lives. They're stuck at home with their parents. They're not out on weekends. I get the sense they have appreciation for their sports that they've never had before. And that when they get back out there, there's, a lot of these kids, they start in sports, as you know, it's there's a lot of pressure from the parents. There's a lot of they don't grow up loving the game the way maybe you did 30 or 40 years ago when you were out playing with your friends in the park. But I get the sense talking to these kids that this is going to bring a love for the game that they've played that they haven't experienced before when they get back out on that field, whether it's football, basketball, soccer, or anything else. They've never had it taken away for an extended period of time like this, which is going to get a lot longer. Can you talk about, and then this is where sports and can do a lot for all of us. Can you kind of speak to that and what this can do and what this does for kids to, really have a chance to look at what this means to them?
Well,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, go ahead. No.
Well, I was going to say,
You want it, Thomas? Yeah.
Well,
I was asking Tom. Either one.
There's a great scene in Field of Dreams when the players come out of the cornrows and, they haven't been able to play baseball for 50 years or whatever the case may be. And they're so excited. They're little kids because something that they had taken away from them, they now have an opportunity to participate in again. And you can see it. The expressions and their mannerisms are excited. That's what I expect to see here. Not only, again, for the players that are coming on the field, which, they're going to be excited because, they're kids and this is what they want to do. They just want to play. But I think, again, for the fans who maybe didn't go and watch the game in person, maybe watch it in a live stream or watch it, they can have that ability, that communal feeling of being together with other folks and enjoying that time and watching sports in real life, in real time. I'm excited about that.
You want to expand on that, you said, Rob?
Well, just again, I think there's been, I've never been shy about what I believe education-based athletics is and how special it is and how unique it is. Nobody else does what we do. And I've said that as long as I've been doing this. And so when it's not there, I believe there's going to be a heightened appreciation for what it is, what it does for young people. And I believe there should be, and I expect to see more appreciation for coaches and athletic directors and administrators and officials and all the people that are involved in this, who people just expect it to be there. I mean, I feel like we're a little bit like officials in what we do. Everyone expects us to run the championships, to do what we do, and everything's going to go perfectly. And the only time that they'll take notice is if something doesn't go right. It's expected that it's going to be right. It's expected it's going to be perfect. And that's a challenge that we're up to every day. And that's our goal every day, is to be perfect at what we do. And so now that it's not here, I just have to believe that people will realize what is involved and how important it is and how much we love it. And then when we come back, it's a much different environment. Sportsmanship. I have to believe we're going to come back, and sportsmanship is going to have to be something that now gets a renewed sense of an appreciation of. And we're dealing with people's life and death situations. We've got to start reevaluating and resetting some of our priorities. Do we really want to be that person? Do we really want to be that parent who's making life incredibly difficult for the coach? Do we want to be that student athlete complaining about playing time and getting the raw deal and needing to transfer and all these other things that we deal with? Maybe we start to reevaluate where some of this fits into a larger picture. And we've certainly been smacked in the head with a 2x4 in terms of having our daily lives interrupted in a way we've never had happen before. And so when we get our daily lives back and we get a chance to do this, it's all pent up and waiting to be, burst out of the house, doggone it, we should be excited. We should be looking forward to it. And people should appreciate it and be really excited and happy about it. And that's what I'm really hoping for as we go forward.
James, I'll let you have the last question. I just wanted to say, guys, I think the high school coaches, fans, athletes, they could be assured, I've come to appreciate both of you over the years. I think you're great at what you do, and that if anyone's capable of handling a situation like this and doing the best they can under these circumstances, Rob and Tom, I just think that you guys have done a phenomenal job, and it's something I've appreciated more as the years gone by and the longer that you're there. So good luck to you. And, I know it's going to be challenging, but I'm really confident that however this is sorted out, you guys are going to do it to the best of your abilities and people are going to appreciate it. Go ahead, James. We lose James?
Yeah, I see his mute button, it looks like.
I'm
and-
sorry.
There
I'm
you go.
sorry. I'm like the guy, the teacher in back to school. I have one question with 52 parts in it. But I do have a few questions. I do have a couple of questions here, Rob. First off, just going back on that point, I understand you had a football summit last year, and you have a main theme that I knew you'd mentioned previously in the previous podcast about the season just stretching too long in preparation for a season. Just go ahead.
Yeah. Well, first I wanted to say thank you to Fred for those kind words. It means a lot to hear from you. I respect you a lot in all your years and your passion and how much you care about this. And I know you care about students first, and that's really puts us on the same plane and definitely makes us have a lot in common. But back to your question, James, we had a summit February 6th in Sacramento, all 10 section commissioners, state office folks, coaches from all over the state. And there were two basic conclusions from that first meeting. Dealing with declining football numbers. One, certainly injury, fear of injury, and parents and students concerned about the injury factor in football. Interestingly enough, not just football in general, but students who were multiple sport athletes who were concerned about injury in football that would keep them from the other sport that they enjoyed. But the second one was about the program, the 12 months, the nonstop weight training, 7-on-7, lineman competition, trying to keep students engaged for basically 12 months when you have 10 Friday nights, maybe more if you get into the playoffs. But point being that the time invested versus the reward that came from that time, a lot of students express that it's just too much. And so without having spring football, without having some of this in the off season, it'll be curious to see if we get more students maybe coming out for football this fall, because they didn't have to be in this environment where, football, I'm sorry, I think our coaches do a wonderful job, and they set up training programs and these competitions and all the rest. But when you're out there in April and you're trying to get students motivated to play a football game in October, I just think it's hard. There's got to be that time where you back off and you just focus on some other things, and then you come back and put in the time you need. So we're going to be interested to see if that has any effect at all, that for this one off season, we just haven't had that full bore, basically 12 months a year football at the top of the list, when in reality, the students are saying it's not necessary in April and May.
Next question I have here, Rob. I understand you mentioned in the previous podcast that the section office has applied for the small business loan that the president has gone out. How real is the financial strains within the sections that comprise the state?
Real, very real. When we eliminate spring sports, we're eliminating a significant revenue stream. That also includes our ability to sell championship apparel, T-shirts and patches and pins and all that. That's an effect. Our television and web coverage, which are part of our agreements with those entities, that takes a hit. So it's a significant revenue stream that we won't have for the spring. We had a wonderful fall and winter, and I really want to make sure people understand that. We've had declining attendance. We haven't been shy about explaining that. And some people believed it was because of the competitive equity playoff system. But I will tell you, and Fred, and anyone out there listening, we had an excellent fall and winter. I mean, across the board, sport by sport, even round by round, we had increased attendance. We had sports that had their best attendance in the last 5 years. So we were off to a fantastic start this year in terms of our championships revenue. Now we don't have it in the spring. We did apply for help from the government. We are a small business. We are a nonprofit. We were fortunate enough to get that. Mitch Carty, our chief financial officer, deserves a tremendous amount of credit. That will help us so that we didn't have to do anything drastic in terms of laying off staff, and we're still able to service our students in our member schools. So we have been planning and working through the end of our fiscal year, which is June 30. We feel like we're in a fairly stable position as we get to the end of the fiscal year. And then when we get to starting into July and August, depending on what the circumstances are and can fall sports resume and what the circumstance and situation will be, then obviously there'll be other decisions. But we're very confident in that that we're going to finish this school year with what we'd already established as a really excellent year financially, with some help from the government, with some cost cutting on our end. We can certainly ride this through and then look to the future.
Last question from me here. The meeting on May the 28th, I believe, the last week in May, there's an action item I think fans also and coaches probably need to understand, Rob, which is the new ejection rule. I get the sense that I think this is going to pass as well, but you might want to explain it, because I think it's a big change.
It's a big change. It's a statewide effort to have all sections in the state with the same policy, which I think is always good. Our legal counsel tells us all the time it puts them in a terrible position when what the southern section's doing, LA City's not, or Central or San Diego or up north. So the bottom line here is that the single game ejection is not changing. It's the same rule, single game. The student sits out that game and one more. The little substantive change is that the student actually can go attend the game they're suspended. That has been a rule that they were not allowed to be in attendance in any way. That will be allowed in this new proposal. The fighting assaultive behavior, which is a different ejection. You can get ejected for using foul language at an official. Okay, that's one game. But if you are engaged in fighting and assaultive behavior that's sort of outside the playing rules of the game, then that ejection can be a minimum of 3 and a maximum of 6 games suspension. That's determined by the sport administrator in charge of each sport. That one is appealable. So if there is a 3-4 game ejection, that can be appealed to the league president if it's a league game, to our office if it's non-league or playoff. And so bigger than that is the idea that, look, we need to take a stand. We need to say when there's fighting and assaultive behavior, one game is not sufficient. We need our students to think about before they swing at someone or kick someone and start a fight or leave the bench and jump into a melee. We need to have more in place that makes the penalty for doing that much more significant than it's been. So I'm actually, there's an update going out tomorrow. And in that update, I'm commenting on a few of the council items as leagues are now meeting. I have 2 league meetings today that I'll be meeting with virtually, and they're going to be discussing these items. And I'm going to be very strongly in support of the statewide ejection policy. I think it's a good move for us. I know there's concerns that, a student's going to get unreasonably ejected and they're going to miss 3 games. No, that's appealable. If it's wrong, it should be corrected. And so if they're concerned about that, I get it. But I think there is a mechanism in place to alleviate that concern. But then it's also putting us in a position to take a strong stand that we're just not going to tolerate the bench clearing brawls. We're not going to tolerate the fighting and assaultive behavior. We're going to step our enforcement, if you will, up and make it more difficult. And quickly though, just so people get it, if these kids leave the bench and they don't do anything, I mean, they just leave the bench and they're standing there, they're not engaged in any of this, that's one game. It's not going to be 3 to 6 games if you go away from your bench area and stand there and watch a fight. But if you're actively involved in it, then yeah, you're going to be looking at a stiffer suspension warranted on your actions. So again, I like a lot of things. People just have to look deeper into the proposal. Some of their concerns, I think, are addressed, that there isn't a chance to appeal if you think it's wrong, and it's not going to be unreasonably applied to a student who just leaves the team box and walks 10 yards out on the field and watches this go on. That student's going to get 1 game because the rule's clear, you can't leave the bench. But the student that's throwing their helmet and involved in the center of it is going to get 3 to 6, and they should. And that's how we see it.
Rob Wigod is the commissioner of the CIF Southern Section. He also doubles up as the public address announcer for the swim championships, which I didn't know until this year.
Yes, love that.
And by the way, puts Rich Gonzalez.
Oh, careful.
Rich Gonzalez cannot hold a.
Come on, Rich is a good guy.
Now.
He's great. Oh, great guy. I'm just kidding.
Gonna get an angry letter from him.
Oh, join.
I just want to say one. I want to say one thing before we go. Recently the Glendale News Press, the Sun over there, and those papers that were part of that community out in. All of those reporters were laid off. The paper went under, and Charles Rich, all of those guys over there, Vincent Dang, Raul used to work with us, and in photo. They've been there so long, and this impact, what has happened is it's kind of devastated some newspapers. We're all kind of treading water right now. But I just wanted to say to those guys over there, they did a tremendous job. I'm sorry to see them go, and I know you guys, and especially Thom, as someone who deals with the media a lot. These are trying times for all of us. At the SCNG, we are all on furloughs, 1 week on, 1 week off, and we understand that it's a difficult time right now. But I just wanted to give a shout out and say thank you to those guys up there, because they were always true professionals, and it's always sorry to see colleagues go.
Well, there are two guys on this conference call who get 3 newspapers a day, who still buy 3 newspapers a day.
Thank you.
That's Rob and I. So
thank you.
And I guess another thing quickly, I mean, they're real people,
Right.
and I know they have a byline in the name that appears when they write, but they are real people and one thing that Thom has said, and I will credit him with that, and maybe it's been a big part of our philosophy, is that we're real people too. Those of us who work in the CIF Southern section, we're real people too. There are names and faces that go with us, and we care a lot, and we want to have a name and a face on our organization. We don't want to be that group that's looked at hiding behind the door and under the desk. When times have been tough and controversies have happened, I believe we've stepped right up, and we've owned the controversy if it's our responsibility, and we've vowed to get better and improve what we do. So, for you to mention those guys, it hurts. It hurts us. It hurts you. It hurts, more importantly, all the readers and all the people that they touched. And so it's been a difficult industry to be part of with what you do. And we're happy you're still there. And we appreciate what you do, because you tell those stories that all we talk about is that our job is to make memories and create stories. But we're not the ones that do as much to get those stories to the public, and you guys do. So definitely a note that touches the heart to know that we've lost some of the colleagues that you have and people that we've appreciated. And let's just hope they can get back. That's the point.
Yes,
I have one
for sure.
quick favor. I have one quick favor here, Rob. I'm working on a video with a lot of the San Gabriel Valley coaches, just thanking the first responders and the medical people.
Yeah.
Go right at it, man.
I want to say for myself and all of us at the CIF Southern section, cannot thank enough and appreciate enough the first responders, the healthcare workers, the folks that are on that front line of trying to deal with this unprecedented time. Both my father and my grandfather were physicians, and I know how dedicated they were to their patients and how much it mattered for them and their commitment to take care of people. So we have this incredible group of people out there that do this every day and risk their own lives and their own families' lives to make our society a better place. So I just want them to know how much we love them and support them and appreciate them. And we really look forward to them getting this job done and being out there to do what we do in a normal life and in a normal way once we get past this terrible time. So thank you for the opportunity to do that.
You guys, stay healthy, guys.
And just know we're there with
guys.
you. Okay, same to you.
Yeah, sure.
That's our show for this week. Until next week, thank you and stay safe.